was a rumble in the jungle. Once I heard Dad was outside again counting birds, and Mama plugged in a nightlight, and I saw the queen of the world. Mama plugged in the nightlight, and I saw
Welcome
the
to the
queen
Golden Hour Birth Podcast. I'm Liz, your co-host.
And I'm Natalie, your other co-host. And tonight we have our friend Lauren on sharing the birth of her beautiful baby girl, 10-month-old baby girl, Marin. So Lauren, if you want to go ahead and jump in and tell listeners a little bit about your family, and we can start from there.
Okay, hi, I'm Lauren. I have my daughter. Her name is Marin Olivia. She is a freaking turd, but the best thing in the world. I have been married, 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. My husband and I have been together for almost, I guess it'll be 9 years, a long time.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. We decided to do things backwards. Buy a house, finish school, then get married.
Yeah.
But I have a dog. He's wonderful too. He loves Marin some days. Some days he does not. We live in Webster. My husband works for Webster Fire, and I'm a nurse practitioner for geriatrics. I go to nursing homes. Love it. Know nothing about kids, and had a kid, and here we are.
Yeah.
Just old people.
Yeah, I was like, and when I got pregnant, I was like, I don't know anything about this, so speak to me like I am dumb, because I know old people, most of them don't have uteruses. Like, I don't know how to do this.
I think taking care of a baby and
It's the
old
same.
person is pretty
It's the
similar.
same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. I've come to realize that.
We just age backwards.
It's so true. A bunch of Benjamin Buttons.
I love that movie. All right. So if you want to kind of go into your pregnancy story, or like when you and Mike wanted to start a family, things like that.
So I was getting my master's at the time, and we knew we kind of wanted to wait until I got my master's, because honestly, who wants to have a kid while going to school?
Yeah.
And then I had been on birth control since I was 15, and kind of was just like, well, they all tell you, hey, you just stop taking birth control and here you go, it's fine. So we decided we were actually just living in my parents' basement when we were like, yeah, let's stop birth control. And I'm like, this is weird, but that's fine. So, because we had to wait until we could move into our new house. But I had, let's see, I think it was October, so I'm trying to even think of the years, because COVID has ruined all concept of time.
It was like 2019.
Pre-COVID, so yes, probably October of 2019. I had actually come off birth control a couple months before that, because I had never even tracked a cycle. I knew nothing. I started my period when I was 14, so I don't even think I ever had to really do anything with it, nor did I remember anything about a period, like a non-cycle period. So we decided to come off and be like, all right, let's just, if it happens, it happens. I had talked to my OB a year before at my prior visit and was like, go on prenatals, do all this, and then you'll be fine. Came off birth control, and I just never started my period. So it took like a couple months for me to even start my period, and then I would have a period, and then a couple months later, still didn't have a period. Naively took pregnancy test because, of course, I thought I was pregnant, but that was not the case. But it was fine. Then COVID came around, so it was probably March when COVID really started happening, so 2020, and I finally was like, all right, I got to call my OB because I'm not having periods. Something's going on. Yeah. So they did, every blood test under the sun, found out that I actually had hypothyroidism. So they started me on thyroid medicine, and then my periods started getting closer and closer together. So then I started having normal length cycles. So this was already been trying October, November, December, January, February, March, April. So 7 months in, and I was just getting cycles.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't having like any clear indication that I was ovulating. And so my OB office is actually wonderful. It's St. Louis Women's Healthcare Group, but they have like fertility like specialist in there, not like your head, like wash you and things like that. But they kind of were like, okay, something else is going on.
Yeah.
So they put me on letrozole, which basically like makes you ovulate. So I started getting labs done, doing all this stuff. I basically, to just sum it up in a short way, because it's a lot of months of tears and frustration and things that my body was just not doing what it's supposed to do, which I'm sure looking back on it now, I'm probably like, yeah, well, maybe some of it had to do with stress, which could have very well been the case. But I had to take letrozole every month. I was getting lab draws freaking weekly because I still wasn't having really any clear indication that I was ovulating. So I had no idea like when to even try.
Yeah.
And, you're just like so frustrated. So then they test Mike, and that's my husband. And they found out that actually his morphology and his counts were off. And I literally will never forget, I was actually working on the COVID floor as a nurse, and they call me and they tell me that I have a very, very low chance of conceiving naturally. And I was just, of course, bawling because I'm freaking 30 years old and being told that it's like may not happen for me, or if it is going to happen, we're going to have to spend way more money than we probably want to, because no one wants to do that. But it is what it is. So I basically we put him on like a ton of vitamins, and we're like, we're going to try to fix this as best we can. Luckily, my best friend, Allison, had been already going through kind of some infertility stuff and knew a whole bunch, and was a great insight for us. So we kind of just started doing whatever they were doing. They were just a couple years ahead of us. And so we just kept trying. I kept getting lab draws. I swear, I mean, some weeks I was getting stuck 2 times a week because they would have to be watching my numbers, but everything was indicating that I started to ovulate with the letrozole after like a couple adjustments of my dose. So this was probably, maybe September 2020 is when I really was like, okay, things are starting to kind of really, we're getting in a routine here. I still was getting labs all the time. Luckily I was a nurse and I was at the hospital, and I could just walk downstairs and get my labs drawn. But wasn't an ideal situation.
Yeah.
And Mike actually had to have surgery because he had to have his parathyroid gland removed randomly on something. And anyways, it affects your vitamin D levels, which it can also possibly affect your sperm. There's been like some studies shown. So he got that removed, and I am convinced, and he's convinced that that's what made his sperm fixed, or maybe we just got lucky. I don't know. But we ended up getting pregnant in October of 2020. I hate the word chemical pregnancy. I think it's such a stupid word because it's a pregnancy. It's not. So I had a miscarriage. Awful. Not something that ever I want anyone to experience, but it was what it was. I mean, what am I going to do about it? It was still just so frustrating because we had been trying at that point for over a year.
Yeah.
And had already gone through endless tests and stupid drugs, and that's basically, it was that month that we decided if we didn't get pregnant, we were going to move on and do IUI and start going into more medical things.
Yeah.
So I had actually I didn't have to have any procedures because it was so early. So I wasn't on letrozole, and then we got pregnant the next month. I was in denial. I remember I was probably 6 or 7 weeks at that point when I finally took a test, because I was just like, had a miscarriage. And so I was like, well, my period's late. It is what it is. And I'm like, my boobs hurt. And then I like remember them texting me and being like, hey, can you go on the COVID unit? Because they were trying to keep us off the COVID unit as I was pregnant. And they knew I was pregnant. And then I had to sit here and go through that horror and sit here and be like, I'm not pregnant, just kidding.
Yeah.
But they texted me and were like, hey, can you go on the COVID unit? And I was like, I guess I should take a pregnancy test. And I did. And it was like 5:30 in the morning before I was like getting ready to start work. And it was like pregnant. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, I just remember being like, this isn't real. And I just like remember like running into Mike, who was like dead asleep. And I'm like, hey, I gotta go to work, but I'm pregnant. And he was just like, I know your boobs hurt. And I was just like, okay. And I was like, I love you. I'm really excited, but I gotta go to work. This is like, I don't know. It just became such a weird thing when you've been struggling. It's like, it takes away all the excitement, but that was like our excitement and funniness. So I went into work and I had already texted my OB and I was just like, hey, so they checked my like levels, my HCG levels, and they were like way higher than what they were with my first pregnancy. And so I was like, okay, hopeful, like we're hopeful this is good.
Yeah.
And then they checked me in a couple days to make sure they were doubling, because I don't know when you come to realize if you ever have infertility and get pregnant, it's just always a worry. Not that normal pregnancies aren't a worry. It just adds a whole nother level of like crap.
Yeah.
But my numbers kept doing what they were supposed to be doing. And I was like, okay. And then I started not feeling good. And then I was like, okay. But it's funny and dark humor. I guess it's just the nurse in me. I kept calling it a sack of cells. And I like wouldn't call it a baby. I just like, now that I have her, I'm like, oh my God, Maren, I'm so sorry. But I mean, I'm not kidding you. I think the whole first trimester, I was like, my sack of cells. Like, it was not a baby for me. And I'm like, it was so bad. All the nurses at work were just like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm twisted. You got to keep it lighthearted here. But yeah, so I was sick for 16 weeks, super nauseous, had to take Unisambi, like B12 the whole time. But I've never been so thankful to be sick, but also like so miserable.
Yeah.
I never actually even threw up. I just like was hugging the toilet so many times. I just like remember like anytime I would brush my teeth, I feel like I barely brushed my teeth for like 12 weeks, because it was just like anytime I'd be like, and I'm like, all right, no. Or like I had to wear Invisalign. I couldn't wear my Invisalign, so now my teeth are all messed up again. And I'm like, I couldn't do it. It was like so bad. And it's like, but you're like so thankful because you're like, okay, everything's good.
Yeah.
But I remember I didn't even cry, I think, for the first like trimester, because I think it just like didn't feel real. But I did cry once, and it was when we got the genetic testing and I saw that it was a girl. And I didn't want a girl at first. But I don't know, I guess it's just because it made it so much more real knowing what you're having. And then I don't know, there's something so strange about seeing your ultrasound and then it looks like a little like frog at first, and you're like, first off, that's not in me, and then really second off, that's not a baby.
Yeah. It looks like a little alien.
Yeah. I'm telling you, mine looked like a frog. And I remember that they had to, you have to like fill your bladder like the first time, because I drank way too much water. I had to pee so bad. I was so miserable. I couldn't even take it in. I remember Mike being like, this is so cool. And I was like, miserable. Like, I was like, my bladder is going to explode. And they're like, just checking. I'm like, okay. And then the next time, because we went for more frequent ultrasounds, because I had a hard time getting pregnant, and then because of my miscarriage. So we had one I might have had one at 10 weeks and then again at 12 weeks. So as I got further on, it was like cooler and cooler for me, because I was feeling more like, okay, this is real. And then also they just look more like, they get little legs and they look like little like Mr. Peanut, and it gets bigger. I had okay pregnancy. I hated being pregnant. It is not for me. I hate not being able to move my body how I want to move my body. I hate relying on other people to do stuff. I had weird, like, I think I was like 16 weeks pregnant, and I had like the worst tailbone pain I've ever felt in my life. I could barely sit.
Oh my God.
And I had become a nurse practitioner in this transition, which was a whole nother thing to have to be like, hey, I'm starting this new job. By the way, I'm pregnant. But they were great, so it was no big deal. But I just remember like trying to sit in a chair, and it was like, had to like keep twisting and turning to my side. So I started seeing, they had a chiropractor in my office. So I saw a chiropractor for the rest of my pregnancy, and
Actually amazing what chiropractors can do.
isn't it crazy?
I love them.
And I just, especially if it's someone who like specializes in pregnancy, because you're just like, everything with, ligaments get loose, everything is not where it's supposed to be. It was weird. So I had that pain. That pain went away. And then it was just like, second trimester is always that time where you're like, all right, I feel okay. Yeah. I had a bump. I was like, this is fun. I didn't also take a picture of my bump until my second trimester either. A lot of head games when you're trying to get pregnant.
And after the loss, I feel like.
Yeah. And it's stupid because, well, it's not stupid. I try to give myself more credit. Be it like, we had only been trying, for a year and struggling. And mind you, it was not a very fun year because it wasn't like everything was right. Everything was just wrong. But like, people have been doing it for years, and I'm like, God, I don't know. I just don't know how. I don't know how people do it. Yeah. But I was fine in my third trimester. Just still hated being pregnant. It was hot. It was summer. She was born in July. Oh, gosh. And my due date was July 27th. She actually came on July 9th. But I just was like sweating all the time. I remember like coming home from work and like stripping off all my clothes and like being in my bra and my shorts and like just charting for work. And I just like remember texting my doctor and being like, I can't sit in these nursing homes, it's too damn hot. And she's like, it's fine, like you go home, we'll be all right. Luckily I can do that with my job. But I got towards the end, and we were started the weekly checks. I think it's a weekly. Yeah. And basically, sorry, this guy's phone.
I think it was Arthur's book.
But we basically went in, and for some reason, I think because of how active I was, I worked out my whole pregnancy, was lifting weights, very active at work. I was like, I'm going early. There's no way. And I like remember going into, our goal was to get past 4th of July. Mm-hmm. We live on the parade route in Webster. My husband's big thing. He's like, we just got to get through. And I'm like, okay. Like, I'm miserable, but that's fine. And so we got through 4th of July, but I remember the week before just she's like, you're not going anywhere. You're not dilated. You are not anywhere dropped. Like, she's like, you carry all your tension in your pelvis. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like, how do I tell my pelvis to not be tense? Like, she's like, that baby's not going to fall out. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm not doing anything. So she was just like, you better start bouncing on a ball and you better start walking. So bet your ass I was like, went home and was just bouncing on my yoga ball nonstop every day. Got through 4th of July. And I was just like, all right, maybe she's dropped, or like we can have like a centimeter. Give me like something. And I like go. And that was, I guess, our second one of them, like of the weekly checks. And she basically took my blood pressure. And in that week, I had gotten super puffy, and I was just like, yeah, it's the heat. I'm in my third trimester. Like, I felt fine. I had never had troubles with my blood pressure up until this visit. No issues. And I go, my blood pressure is like 140s, 150s over 100. They're like, you have 3+ protein in your urine, which you're not supposed to have any. And they were like, you have to go to the hospital. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I'm just here for a checkup. She's like, no, you gotta go. We gotta get that baby out. And I'm like, in my scrubs, like getting ready to go to work. And I'm like, God dang it. So I had to like call 300 people and be like, I'm not coming to work. Apparently I'm having a baby today. And I remember calling Mike, who I think was getting his hair cut at the time. And then I was just like, Well, I was a bad person because nurses are the worst patients in the world. And I went back home and because I didn't have anything packed. She wasn't supposed to come for like 3 weeks. And they told me like the baby's not coming anytime soon. And I was apparently tighter than ever. So I got Mike, or finally got him. And I was like, yeah, we're having a baby. And he was like, what? And we had like this list on our refrigerator that we wanted to get done of stuff before Marion came for the house. And Mike's like, not all the stuff is done. I was going to get it done these next couple of weeks. And I'm like, sorry, you guys scratch that. I hadn't had my bag packed. I had nothing. So
oh my gosh.
I went back home, packed up my bag, got him together. And then by the time I got to the hospital, my blood pressure was like 160s or something, 170s over 100. And they were like, yeah, we really need to get you upstairs. So they admitted me right away. They actually started me on a magnesium drip right away when I got upstairs, which, mind you, I went into this whole thing wanting a natural birth. And little did I know that my plans were going to be very much squashed.
Mm-hmm.
But, so yeah, I didn't want an epidural at all because I just wanted to be able to move.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like being tied to a bed. I wanted to be able to like work through my pain and just experience it as what it is.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a high pain tolerance. And so I was just like, I want to do this. And basically they're like, with the magnesium drip, you can't get out of bed. And I was just like, what? And it just like made me so tired. Did you have a magnesium drip?
I didn't.
Okay, so it made me so tired. Like you feel drugged. Like I just was like so tired and like loopy, and it just like I kept falling asleep, and then I would wake up. And so we started that. They started the induction, hooked me up to the Pitocin, started giving me Cytotec, which is sometimes they can give it orally, but for some reason they chose to give it to me vaginally, which was awful because they had to tuck it like all the way up by your cervix. Apparently I have like a posterior leaning cervix too, so it's very hard to get to. And they're shoving their fingers so far at me, and I'm just like, oh my God, it was the worst. And then they had to do that like every 2 hours. And I basically we went to the hospital at like, I don't know, maybe noon. And by the time we started all this, it was maybe 3. And then they did like 4 or 5 rounds of the Cytotec.
Oh my God.
Like every 2 hours. Yeah. And I was like not dilating. They're like, you're getting softer, but you're not. So it was just great. So then they were like, well, we'll up the Pitocin. I was having contractions. I didn't feel them, though, which was the weirdest thing in the world to me, to like look at them on it and they're like, yeah, you're contracting. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, that's so strange. And
That's
I'm
how
like,
I
is
felt.
this normal? Yeah. And then they were like, well, okay, we'll try to do some things to try to see if we can get you to progress a little bit. So they were doing, all the positioning stuff and shaking me and like all the positions. I don't even remember what they're called. I just remember like all the people like come in and like they had to wrap a towel around my pelvis and they were like shaking my hips.
Shaking apples.
Yeah. And then, oh yeah, you did some of me, didn't you? And then like the peanut, and they had me like on my side, and then I like did all these things, and I think the furthest I got was like 2 centimeters, and they were like, okay, so we probably need to put a balloon in you to help you dilate because you're just, nothing's happening. She's doing fine. Like she was completely just content, chilling. Obviously, I mean, she had 3 weeks to go still, so I'm sure she was just like, no way.
Yeah.
But they ended up like basically were like, we recommend you getting an epidural before we did the balloon. And I was like, okay. At this point, I was just like, I can't get out of bed anyways, so I guess I might as well, because to me, my whole thing was like, I just wanted to move, and I couldn't even do that. I had to use a bedside commode to pee, so I was like getting up all the time to pee because they were pumping you full of fluids with it. They had to give me IV medicine to get my blood pressures down because they were still just like skyrocket. So, they were drawing labs on me, all this stuff, because I had preeclampsia. So here we go. That was like, okay, cool. Let's add another thing to me, but it was fine. I got the balloon, or like got my epidural, which Mercy, did you have Wes and Mercy?
Yeah.
Did you have yours at Mercy? Mercy's anesthesia team is top notch. They were unbelievable, and they were like all I really honestly remember from my pregnancy. Like, I remember the girl, some of the nurses, they were wonderful too, but the anesthesia team was just like, I keep telling myself I need to write them a letter, because it was just like they made my whole experience just like when you go in with something and then it's just completely different. They were the ones that, and they took all my pictures, and I have like professional pictures. It's crazy. And there was a nurse anesthetist, and I was just like, man. But I got my epidural, almost passed out from that because I like don't do well with knowing that things are going to my spine. I know too much. Yeah. That's my issue. I know too much, but not enough. But it was fine. Got the epidural. They got me super numb, which was great. Had no issues with that. Started the balloon process. I still only dilated to 5 centimeters, and that is as far as I got. I was like not going anywhere. I was so swollen. They were like, the nurse ended up actually being one of my husband's friends' wives, and she was able to actually be there for Maren's delivery, which was really cool and fun and special. Yeah. But she was like, pulled Mike aside and was like, she doesn't look good, because they're like, you can still go, we can still go. And at this point, we had been in the hospital, and it was Thursday we went in the hospital, and I had her Friday. So it was Friday like evening. So we went in Thursday morning, and Friday evening I was still like 5 centimeters and like not going anywhere. And I was just like, and then I just remember looking down, and she was like, you don't look good. These are the options. And I'm like, I don't want a C-section, but I'm like, I don't know, what do I do? And she was like, we can try for a couple more hours, and we got to do what we got to do. But she's like, I'm concerned. You don't look good. I like look down my catheter. It's just like full of blood. I'm like so swollen. And I just remember being so freaking tired and just being like, whatever, just please get this baby out of me so I can not feel like this. And she can also just like I knew something was wrong, and I didn't want it to get into an emergent situation where they would have to knock me out and I wouldn't be awake for it, or, you know. Yeah. And so it was like, that was the fastest thing I've ever experienced in my life. It was like, okay, let's go for the C-section. And it was just like, bam, bam, bam. They're like, OR's ready. We're doing this. Whole anesthesia team came in, and I just remember being like, oh my God, because I'm like in my own like gown that I bought to like labor in. And they're like, we got to get all this stuff off you. And I'm like, okay. And I just like, okay, packed up. They got me completely numb, and then the next thing I know, I'm in the OR, and I'm like, whoa, okay. Bright lights. It's this like awful experience, because it's just not, it's so sterile, it's so medical. I just remember being like so scared shitless, because it was just surgery, and they were cutting me open, and that was just like not a great thing. Like I said, know too much. So I just remember shaking, like I was like shaking uncontrollably, and then I was like gonna throw up, and that's apparently all the anesthesia and
all the medication.
And so I was just like, I just literally remember like being like, I'm raised Catholic, but like Jesus on the cross, like no joke. Like I was just like shaking, and I was just like looking at Mike like, oh my God, please don't leave me, I'm gonna throw up. And I just like never threw up, but it was the worst. But then they finally gave me medicine to make that go away, and that was wonderful, because that was the worst out of all of it. Like I remember I had some back labor when I was actually having some labor, and I was like, man, take me back to that. I don't want this. This is stupid. Aww. But so they got her out, and I just remember Mike just like leaving me and going to her, because of course. And I'm just like, no, I'm like still open on the table. I'm like, just make sure she's okay. I mean, they brought her, they cleaned her real fast, and then they brought her like up to me. And I just remember seeing her and being like, oh my God, she's beautiful. Like, why is it a random, and I don't know if it was like this for you guys, but I had this like random fear that she was going to be ugly. And I'm like, please don't let my baby be ugly. Like, why is that a fear of anyone's anytime? But I just like remember being like, oh my God, she's so beautiful. She had so much hair. And they were just like, she has so much hair. And she, has a little hat on, and they like lift it up. And I'm like, she's like all this black hair, and I'm just like, what in the world? And she was just so pretty. She had like the perfect little lips and like the perfect little face.
Aww.
And that was like the coolest thing. But then, yeah, like I said, I was like, Mike's like all the way over with her. And I'm like very aware that they're closing my insides. And I'm just like, nope.
Yeah.
But the rest of it was a blur.
Yeah.
And then we had to move. I then ended up going, I guess, to the recovery stuff. And then ended up going to postpartum. Then we were in postpartum for like a couple hours. And then I came in and they're like, Marion has to go to the NICU. And I was like, what? What's going on? Because obviously I just had surgery.
Yeah.
And I had to wake Mike up from like sleep. And he's like, what? So he left with her because I was like, go with her. Like, I'm here. I cannot get you. I could not get out of bed because I still had to be on a magnesium drip for I think like a whole 24 hours afterwards.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was bedbound for like freaking 2 days. It was hell.
Oh.
But they took her to the NICU. So then I couldn't see her because I was bedbound. So for like a full day, I could barely see her.
Did they say why they took her?
So her temperatures weren't staying up and her blood sugars weren't staying up. They said it probably was because she was like a little early and her body just wasn't like ready to regulate all those things. But they said it could be an infection too. So they gave her like IV antibiotics and basically just watched her and with some time. Like she was only honestly in there for like, I think 2 days. We were in the hospital for a week total.
Whoa.
Because I then she ended up being jaundiced and then had to go under the lights. But we did get her back and it was great. We moved rooms. I swear to God, we were in like 5 rooms while we were there because they just kept moving us around because they moved us to like, you have to go to a certain room if you have a NICU baby. And then if you're not a NICU person, then you have to go to another room. So I had to move again. And then I ended up actually having to stay because my liver enzymes were all elevated. I was having all these issues still with my, I guess, post-eclampsia now.
Yeah.
And then I had to go home on blood pressure meds. I had to get labs checked after I eventually got to go home. It was long, and I think Mike was going crazy more than I was, just because I think it was still just kind of all of a blur for me. But for him, he was like very much with it and just sleepy and just like stuck in a hospital for 7 days and was just like, get me out of here.
Wow.
But we took her home and she was amazing ever since. So like good sleeper. I had really hard time breastfeeding. That only lasted for like 3 months. I had a low supply. A lot of issues and anxiety all around that. Now looking back, I'm like, man, all of my anxieties and frustrations were from breastfeeding. And it's so stupid and no one tells you. But I slept on the couch. Me and Mike slept on the couch for probably 3 weeks.
That's what we did too.
Our kitchen was there. We live in a 2-story house. Like everything was on the main floor. I had a C-section, so I could barely get out of freaking bed. That was the worst pain of everything because it just felt like I felt like I was like ripping open and I wasn't. But that was weird. I had a lot of blood pressure issues. I had to be on blood pressure meds for a couple weeks, and then my blood pressure eventually started getting better to the point where I was like, I'm dizzy, because I didn't need blood pressure meds anymore, and everything got back to normal. Yeah. So that was great. But they basically were like, if you get pregnant, you're at higher risk to have it again with your second pregnancy, but if you have it the first time. And I was on aspirin the whole time I was pregnant too, because I had a miscarriage, and that's something they put you on too. So she's like, you'll just have to take double the aspirin next time. And I'm like, man, it's just weird. Yeah. It's so weird. Whoa. But yeah, so postpartum was okay. Honestly, I was very fortunate. Mike got to take a month off work.
That's good.
And then his schedule's great too. So great and not great, because he is gone for 48 hours at a time, and but he is then home for 4 days. Oh, wow. So those 48 hours were long because I was by myself. But my mom came over a lot, and my best friend Gina came over a ton. And just like, I remember just like her bouncing on a ball with Marin just to get her to calm down. Because those first 6 weeks are just like, baby's fussy. You're learning to be a mom. I felt like Marin was either just sleeping, pooping, or crying. Like, but yeah, it was still so great. Like, she was sleeping. I had to like wake her up every 3 hours. She was never like a baby that would wake up all the time or like, which may have been part of my breastfeeding troubles. I don't really know. It's hard to say because I didn't get to really breastfeed in the hospital because Marin was in the NICU and I couldn't go.
Yeah.
So I had to start pumping, which is not ideal.
Sucks.
On those hospital ones too, I feel like they're just so big and bulky and they're not what you need.
No,
Well, and it's like I feel
not
like they
starting
just
off.
expect you to like. I mean, they have lactation consultants, but it's like, hey, here's 20 minutes with someone, and you got everything. And I'm like, I don't know. I've barely even been able to see my baby. Like, I have no idea. Like, and I have slightly inverted nipples, so I had to use shields to even get her to latch, and it was just like.
You're like, get the shield on. Okay, now get the baby on. Oh, she pulled it off.
Correct. It was like
a whole cycle.
The worst. But so she started with formula because they basically were like, are you okay with us supplementing her? Because they needed her to get certain amount of calories because she was having all these issues in the NICU. And I was like, I don't care. Keep my baby happy and healthy. Like, whatever you got to do. And they were like, I just remember one of the nurses being like, she really lets you know when she's hungry. And I'm like, oh, she said they just like, she really screams when she's hungry, but then as soon as she eats, she's happy. And I'm like, yeah, now that I see that, I'm like, yeah, she's still like that. But yeah, so she was just eating so much, and it's so funny. She was so little. She was 7 pounds, 1 ounce. Which I guess really isn't that little considering she was 37 weeks.
Yeah.
But
like, that's a good sized babe.
Yeah. But like to me, I was like, oh my God, you're so small.
Yeah.
And then she lost like 10%. So she lost like what they basically are like, you know, that's the max. And I'm like, oh God. And then I'm like, something's wrong. You know, everything. Your brain as a new mom is just like spirals. But yeah, I don't know. I think once we got past the first, well, honestly, once I stopped breastfeeding, which was like 4 months, life got so much better. It just was not our journey. And I think I put so much pressure and stress on myself to like be that person. My friends had not had any issues. Well, one of my friends did, but she also had a baby in the height of COVID. And I think a lot of stuff probably honestly could have been avoided if she had more support, but she had none because COVID shut everything down. So, but you know, both of my 2 friends that had babies had breastfed their kids until they were a year. And I'm like, I feel so much guilt, which is just like insane that we place all this freaking stress. And I just, and I still was supplementing, I was still breastfeeding, but basically, I mean, I was to the point where I weaned in like a week because I had no supply. So I was like, I am done. This is not for me. I'm getting depressed every time I had gone back to work. Every time I was pumping, I was getting like 2 ounces total. And I'm like, this is so depressing. It was like awful for my mental health.
Like tracking yourself like by the numbers. I remember having that issue. Because we were kind of like going through it together.
You came over getting supplements. Like it was.
I was supplementing so much, trying to get my supply back up, and I'm just like counting myself by the numbers. Like I only got 1 ounce. Oh my God.
And that just makes you more stressed, which doesn't help. The supply. It's just like a cycle.
And then it's just like, I mean, but I've talked to some people who have had oversupplies and they're like, it's just as bad. Like breastfeeding is just, it's just stupid. It's so great, but it's like and I didn't even really like enjoy, and maybe that's because I had to use shields and it was just not an easy thing for us. And so, but I like knew that this was like awesome because I had all these antibodies and, you know, I had my COVID vaccines and I was like, I want to give her as much like that I can and protect her. And
I bet the stress was higher.
Mm-hmm.
The vaccine wasn't out when I had Vivian. So, but that added pressure of like, oh, you're going to pass this on too.
So it's just like weird. But once I stopped breastfeeding, postpartum got way better. And it was just fun. And I feel like you get past 4 months. I don't know. At least for me.
That 3-month mark is
it's just game changer. They start having like little personalities and they're not just like little blobs. And especially for my husband, like Mike was just like, this is not like, he loves her now. Like he's like, I don't ever, like I was looking actually thinking about everything about doing this podcast. I'm like looking at all of her baby pictures and, we're coming up on her first birthday and I'm just like looking at all these baby pictures. I'm like, oh my God, like look how cute. And he's like, nope. And that's just like, it's so funny.
I literally feel in the same exact boat because like Sam is doing so amazing with Wes and I'm at the point where like, can we just like have a new one? Like that I can just like, I'll take full care of that one. You got Wes, the maniac who's like running around everywhere. You got that.
Yeah. So Marin's great, but she always was. She was a great, and then that was the other thing. So I guess maybe I got blessed. I had so much crap happen in the beginning, and then she was sleeping through the night at like 8 weeks, I swear.
Awesome.
And then even that, like honestly, she started waking up once a night, and it was when I went back to work, and it's probably because she just like knew something was weird and different. And then even then, I mean, up until she was like 6 months old, maybe like randomly she'd wake up once in the night. And that's like the girl sleeps from like 6:30 to 6 a.m. Like we are just like, that is our routine. She is a great napper. She puts herself to sleep. Like she's just great. Like she's like, I'm just like, oh my God. And then I'm like, I don't know if we have another one because she's next one, like, she just said this so well. And then Mike's like, and everyone's like, well, what if you have another one like that? And I'm like, I don't know. Does that happen? Like, do you get that again? No. Like, I don't know. Because I don't think I had anything to do with this. I mean, I'm like, you prepare, you read books and do all this stuff. But I don't know. I just think that's just how she came out.
Did you wear a sleep trainer?
I mean, not really, because she slept.
She did it. Yeah. Amazing.
Like, I mean, we had to sometimes. We did when she started rolling over to her belly. That was a huge thing.
Yeah.
Did not like sleeping on her belly at first. And then I think like once she realized that, oh, this ain't bad.
It's comfortable.
So comfy. Yeah.
Then she was sleeping through the nights like again. So we only had like a couple like rough release spells where it really wasn't. I don't know. She chooses also, I swear to God, when Mike's at work to have terrible nights. So I'm just like... But I feel like kids know, they read off your energy, and I just like tried to stay like so calm and just chill and a little bit more flexible. I think I was very uptight at first because you read all these books about these schedules and like everyone recommended all these things, and I was just like, oh my God, this is just like, that stressed me out even more. And I finally was just like, put the books down. We went and we did our thing.
Yeah.
I went by a eat, sleep, wake cycle, and we stuck with that, and that was what we did. And then it just kind of turned into our own schedule, and we figured it out. And what worked for Marin is what works for Marin.
That's good.
I feel like a lot of kids, like, Marin goes to bed early.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh my God, that's so early. And I'm like, yeah, but that's what that's what works for us.
Yeah,
so
same.
We tried to put her to bed later, and she would wake up earlier.
Yes.
Or, or like, it was like she was still waking up at the same time, regardless if we put her to bed at 6 or 7. I'm going to put her to bed at 6.
Right. Yeah.
Because you bet your ass, when I put her down, I play on my phone. I watch my TV. I like a whole hour before bed. I'm like staying up later than I used to be a 9 o'clock bed person, and now I go to bed at like 10:30. And I'm like, I was never like that, but now I'm like, no, it's my time to breathe.
Yeah, it is. Regroup.
Like, I just have to reset. Not that I don't love being a mom, but being a mom is a freaking hard job.
It's so hard.
And being a working mom on top of it. Not that staying home is any easier, because Mike is an angel and he stays home with her 4 days a week, and he is like losing. He's about to lose it whenever I get home. He's like, "Can you just please?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But I miss her during the week, and the weekends are like extra special, and they're like our time. And I just like miss her, and I love her, and it's just so fun to hang out with her. And I don't know, 10 months. She's also like kind of ahead of the curve with a lot of things too. So. She's like so close to walking, and like she walks with her walker and just like walks and walks and walks. She climbs up the steps all the time. That's my dad's fault. My parents watch her when my husband's working and I'm working, and they just, she's just like been pulling, like as soon as she could roll over, then she started crawling. She was like crawling at, I think like 6 months. And then it was just like, I swear to God, she all of a sudden was like, I can pull up on things. And then was like pulling up in furniture walking at like 8 months. And I was like, okay, child, like she's just crazy. She's crazy. She just has to go. I barely can hold her anymore because if you are not moving while holding her, then you snooze, you lose, Mom. Put me down. Like I want to look at everything and touch everything. And
I'm in the exact same boat.
Yeah. It's just like, but it's cool because everything's like so new to them and fun. And
it's so fun.
It is.
Like when they laugh, I don't know, Marin is doing this. No one can see my face, but you guys can at least see my face. She does this thing where she goes, and she like cheeses so hard and just like, that's like, she does it all the time. And I'm like,
cute.
Where did you learn this? And I'm like, do I do this? Or like, you know, because like kids learn from you. But I'm like, maybe, I don't know, maybe someone's doing it.
Does she like ever take like towels or like pants and like put them around her neck and like, this is what Wes does all the time. Like
he's like ready for the game.
Yeah, he like puts like something around his neck and then he just does it. Like he even did it with my car keys today.
Marin just throws everything. Like pulls every towel down, throw it. Pull this, throw it. Like I had the diaper bag on the ground. She's just like pulling everything out of it. And then I put it back in. Then she's pulling it all out again. And I'm like, all right, don't get toys. Get diaper bags, boxes, everything. Everyone tells you that. And then you're just like,
there's so many toys.
Kitchen utensils, whisks.
Yes.
My dog's water bowl. She's obsessed with my mat that we put his bowl on. I don't know. Everything besides her toys. The remotes.
Oh, yeah.
But I gave her own remote that has no batteries in it. No. Does she want that one? No. She wants the one that actually works.
Same. My dad gave her an
That's
older
Vivian's fake remote right there. And she wants nothing to do with it.
Why do they know?
I don't know. That's what I said. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, because you can't know that the buttons like work. There's just no way.
Yeah. Wes will like actually point at the TV. I'm like, you watch us way too much.
Yes, he's smart.
He's so smart.
I think Marin's just like crazy. Like maybe a little, I don't know. She's smart, but I'm like, I don't know if she's going to be. Does Wes talk a lot?
Just like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Marin just I'm like, yeah.
Tell me more.
I keep trying to get like mama. I'm like mama, and then she's just like ba 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 ba. And I'm like, all right, close.
I still haven't gotten anything from Vivian except for Dada. She started saying bye bye a little bit, but I'm like, come on, she's like 15 months now.
I know.
You're supposed to be talking, I think. I don't know. I haven't checked any milestones with Vivian because I checked them so much with Arthur. Yeah. And I'm just like, whatever.
So
she'll do it when she does it.
Yeah. I think at first I checked a lot of milestones, and now I'm just like, if my pediatrician sees something wrong, then they're going to let me know. And then I'm also just like, well, a lot of my friends have kids, and I'm like, you seem to be okay. Like, you're in an okay area compared to them. We're fine.
Yeah.
All right.
If you're happy, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to start and go. But yeah, we went through quite a weird ride, and I'm sure I forgot a lot of it because I blacked a lot of it out. It's like, suppressed in the brain, and I have to like think of all of it. And but in the end, I still have one freaking kick-ass kid. So
that's true.
And I'm trying to be a mom every day, but some days are good and some are not, and that's okay.
Yep.
I tell Mike, we go to bed and we start over the next day because that's all you can do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any advice for new moms or anyone about to have a baby?
God, I would say like, don't follow the rules. I don't know. Like, I think reading things and preparing are so great because I think there is something to be said about educating yourself on. So much research has been going into like childhood development and parenting where that wasn't the case back then. So I think but take it with a grain of salt. Like, it's every freaking kid is different, and what works for one is not the case with another. And also what works one day doesn't work the next.
Very true.
Yeah.
So I think you just, I wish I could go back to when I was like a month postpartum, just being like, cut yourself some slack, you know? It's like,
that's really good advice.
yeah, you gotta cut yourself some slack. It's just, I say this all the time, and I tell a lot of new moms this too. Is your baby safe? Are they healthy? That's all that matters. So like, if you need to leave your kid for a day, they're safe, they're healthy. That's all that matters. Like, that's all that matters. So
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's good advice. Would you give any advice to like women going through infertility?
Fight for yourself, advocate for yourself, find a very good OB that you trust. And if you feel like something is wrong, it's good to not wait. So I feel like I was very, very lucky. And I think our story would have been much different if I wasn't a nurse, honest to gosh, and didn't have enough like education. And also my friend that is still, her and her husband have been trying for over 3 years and still aren't pregnant. And I think if I didn't have all of the stuff that she had, and she kind of started going through this a little bit more with COVID, and just things kind of got pushed to the back burner and so got delayed, where it's with me, I was like, nope, something's wrong. I gotta do this. But it's just like, unfortunately, COVID just makes things it made things a little bit weird. Now things are open again. So it's a little bit more, but I don't know, if something's not right, you got to speak up, because my sister is trying to have a kid and she just got diagnosed with lean PCOS, and her doctor was like, you're fine. You just came off birth control. Like, and my sister's like, no, something's like, my labs are off. Like, something's not right. And kind of fought to like have further testing. And they were like, you're young. It's like, I hate that. Like, I hate hearing that. I'm like, they're like, you're young. It's fine. Just wait. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
Like, first off, a geriatric pregnancy is at 35. Like, that's so young. So like, no one has kids in their like 20s really anymore.
No,
you know, like no one has kids before they're 25. Like, that's, that's not the norm anymore.
I think the median age moved, didn't it?
Yes.
To 29.
Yeah, probably. Because that's kind of the norm. So I'm like,
I don't doubt it.
know. You just gotta fight for yourself.
Good. I love it. And I feel like they should do some further testing, because PCOS is a real thing.
Yeah. And like with me, I mean, they still didn't even have any like that. I still had like, okay, I had hypothyroidism, but they like were like no clear indication why I was needing meds. And like,
I never knew
now
that
my body is
thyroid was connected to
it
fertility.
can cause you to have irregular periods. It's like one of the big things. They actually monitor it too when you get pregnant. It's like one of the things they check. So I had to have, I'm on meds and I still am. But yeah, they have to check all this random stuff. And I had all the symptoms, but I was just like, I'm getting my master's. So
I've had hypothyroidism since I was born.
Yeah.
So I've like, been on meds my whole life, and like my dose is like the highest that you can get.
So it's crazy. It's interesting.
But yeah, like they were constantly checking
when you're pregnant.
And then checking me after.
Yeah. And they were like, well, maybe you'll have like, because sometimes pregnancy can cause you to have hypothyroid, because a lot of your thyroid hormone is based off of stress, which can affect your thyroid. And so a lot of times when you're pregnant, people can have hypothyroid during their pregnancy, and then it resolves.
Yep.
Pregnancy's wild.
Oh,
It is wild.
It's wild.
It does a number on our bodies.
Yes.
I know.
And our minds.
I know. I'm like, I'm still recovering. I'm still like, I just had a baby, and then I'm like, oh my God, no, we're 10 months out.
No, you just
Like,
had a baby.
I know, but that's like how, you just like think about it, and you're like, no, I just had a baby. And then I'm like, no, not really. But then, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been fun. But
Is there anything else you want to add? I think this is such a great story.
no, I mean, like I said, I'm going to type up my birth story someday and like try to remember it all and add in like my husband's such like a freaking, don't you want to add some comic relief? And I'm like, sure. I'm like, do you want me to tell them all of our weird stories? Like, I don't think everyone needs to know about these things.
I've got some comic relief for you.
Yeah.
Mike coming to our wedding and decided to like heat up
the
sandwich
The chicken
with
an iron.
Yes, with an iron.
My husband is known to drink too much sometimes and just do stupid things. I'm like, I just remember being like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm hungry. And I'm like, babe, that's the hotel's iron. And someone's gonna like try to iron their shirt and there's gonna be chicken on it.
I was not even there, but this is like still the funniest story I know.
He's
From that weekend.
the best and the worst all at the same time. That's what I tell him all the time. But yeah, we had our comic relief moments throughout all this stuff, but I don't know. I think having perspective from a male is quite interesting. And I know you guys were talking about having male partners on your guys' show at one time. And
yeah,
I shouldn't try to convince him because trying to hear it from just because he's also not a touchy-feely guy, but it's like hearing it from his perspective, you just don't realize how much stress is put on the partner.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for him because he was also told that he was like part of the problem. And there is not a lot of research and studies for male stuff. A lot of stuff is all focused on the females being the problem.
Yeah.
Which, hey, here we are.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of studies about how to correct things for males and like looking into causes and how to fix that because it's becoming a huge issue. But I could go on and on about that. But it's just crazy. But I'm sure his story would be just as sad and stressful. And like I said, there's a lot of bad that is not for not camera, but microphone stories. But then there's also a lot of good that some very inappropriate that maybe not be for microphone either. But all in all, will I get pregnant again? Yes. But will I get pregnant again after that? Hell no.
2 and done.
Yep.
Got it. All right. Thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing your story. And yeah, I just loved it all. Thank you.
For photos and more information on Lauren, check out our website, thegoldenhourbirthpodcast.com. You can also find links in the show notes to follow Natalie and Liz on Instagram and Facebook. There are also links to great resources there as well.
If you'd like to share your story with us, head over to our website to fill out the guest intake form and we'll be in touch with you. We love birth stories of all kinds, so don't be shy.
And one last thing, if you enjoy our podcast, please share with your friends and family and give us a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen so more listeners can connect with us. See you next episode.